Hello, everyone. Henry Conley here with the Voice of Liberty podcast. I wasn't planning on going live tonight, mainly because I spent my night experiencing such a wonderful and peaceful protest in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. A protest where hundreds of peaceful protesters showed up to honor the life and the memory of George Floyd. A protest where hundreds of wonderful and peaceful protesters from all walks of life came together to share a moment and to call for justice for George Floyd. A protest where the chief of police and where his police force knelt with us for 8 minutes and 47 seconds, marking the amount of time a knee was on the neck of an innocent man that ended killing him. I was going to take tonight to reflect upon that, to think about that, so I could organize myself and organize my thoughts for a more in-depth podcast episode tomorrow night. As you saw, I didn't even do my intro today. I didn't do my intro because what I have to talk about right now is something that I can't believe I have to talk about. The President of the United States today has sent out at least 6 or 7 tweets calling for the governor of New York to request that the military be deployed on the streets of New York. Video coming out of New York shows peaceful protests. I see no violent thugs. I see no horrendous people protesting. I can go into my Twitter right now. And looking through it, the most recent tweet from Trump as of 12 minutes ago, the one that sparked me deciding to do this tonight. Chaos, lawlessness, and destruction take over New York. I've seen the videos. I've been watching the video coming out of New York, just like I've been watching the video coming out of Los Angeles, out of Seattle, out of Portland tonight. The protests are peaceful. The President of the United States is itching for war against the people. The President of the United States tonight is itching for the deployment of troops into the streets of America. The President of the United States has tried so much to get his war overseas. He started problems with Iran. He tried pushing it there. He's tried pushing for this war because we all know that a wartime president seemingly always gets reelected. He hasn't succeeded in getting that war, though. So now he's pushing for war against the very people of this country. I find it absolutely disturbing. A tweet from 12 minutes ago. When will Governor Cuomo call the federal government for help? A tweet where he was referencing the Federalist, who up until about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, was a criminal website where they tried to say that protests were violent when they weren't. He is actively attempting to goad his followers into believing that protests that are peaceful are not peaceful at all. I need to urge everyone to think about something really quick here. The moves that the president has taken over the last few days are highly calculated. They're extremely calculated. They have nothing more than obvious signs. They are nothing more than obvious signs pointing to the fact that he is making very, specific moves to energize his base and to fire them up prior to the election. To those that are countering me on things I said in the last few podcasts, where I talked about why I'm worried that he declared Antifa to be a terrorist organization, I say this. Some of you are Boog Boys. Some of you openly talk about the next revolution, the next civil war. Some of you talk about things that if Antifa is declared a terrorist organization, the precedent will have been set to declare you to be a terrorist organization. Remember, the voices that you're worried about could be your voices next. I have watched nothing but peaceful protests today. A few upset, steamed up individuals here and there. But other than that, super peaceful. As I'm recording this, the news is showing peaceful protests everywhere. Black Lives Matter. No justice, no peace. All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. These are the things that I'm hearing right now. In New York City, the police are cordoning off zones to keep protesters stuck inside of them. While they're cordoning off these zones, these people are, of course, wanting to get out. They don't want to be trapped. They don't want to be stuck in these zones. They want to be able to leave. But these people wanting to leave are apparently domestic terrorists. These people wanting to leave are apparently violent protesters, according to the President of the United States. These people are the enemy. Tonight we watched the United States military take the steps of the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. They covered their faces. They hid. They stood there and they blocked protesters. Donald Trump pushed for so many different ways for the military to display its power on the streets of the United States. Almost all of them were in the Capitol. But now he has finally gotten his way. My question here is this. The President of the United States is openly calling for war against the people. He is openly calling for the military to take unilateral action against peaceful protesters. I've seen reports of peaceful protesters being arrested for nothing more than a curfew violation. By the way, a curfew violates their very freedoms and rights to protest. But no, that's not enough for Trump. That's not enough for Donald Trump. Donald Trump isn't content with curfews. Donald Trump isn't content with a few arrests. Donald Trump will not be content until there is blood in the streets from the military taking action against you. This is tyranny. This is fascism. This is the end of democracy in the United States, and this is the institution of a dictatorship in the United States. This is martial law. This is the things that we, as libertarians, as free individuals, stand against. Why? Why do we allow this to happen? Why do we allow this to occur? We're called crazy because we speak out against this. But we are seeing it occur right now. We are seeing everything we've warned about happen. So I call the question, and if I wasn't already on a goddamn list, I'm going to be on one. And anybody that watches this podcast knows I'm not afraid to let my language fly. If I wasn't already on a list, I'm going to be on one. I have to ask, who is the real terrorist? Is it the people that claim to be anarchists? Is it the people that claim to be anti-fascist? Or is it the person sitting in the White House who cowered in a bunker, who is calling for the military to be put on the streets against us, the people, we, the people? It seems like our governments forgot who they serve. They seemingly, and by they, I specifically mean the Trump administration right now, because they are exemplifying things that I've spoke out against. He has never known who he serves. He has never known who he reports to. But right now, he's exemplifying that he has no care to know. His cult will praise him. His cult will call us the enemy. His cult will call us the terrorists because we stand against the state. We stand against the omnipotent state. We are anarchists. We are anti-fascist. We are not the terrorists. The terrorists are the ones that are using weapons that in war would be called a war crime against the people. The terrorists are the ones spraying rubber bullets at innocent protesters. The terrorists are the ones who are shooting rubber bullets at pregnant women, hitting them in the stomach. The terrorists are the ones that are trapping people against the high embankments of I-95 and spraying endless amounts of tear gas at them, allowing them no way to flee. The terrorists are the ones that allowed friends of mine to walk for 2 hours past curfew and then stop them and give them no chance to return to their cars before flinging them about like rag dolls and arresting them. If I end up on a list for speaking the truth, for speaking about how dangerous the system we are living in right now is, then God damn it, I'm proud to be on that list. My friend Hobson has something to say here, and I don't normally bring live comments up during this part, but I will. That's what happens when you got two wings and fly like an eagle. Yes, my friend. I think a lot of people right now are seeing that freedom and the government, they don't coexist. See, where I found some solace tonight as I watched the chief of my local police department kneel with us for 8 minutes and 47 seconds, where I found solace where I watched the rest of his officers kneel with us and proclaim that the years of ineffective speech need to become effective, where the years of speech that literally went nowhere needs to actually become something. Where I found solace in that, and where I found a bit of relief, all Donald Trump had to do is send out one tweet. And it made me remember that this nice town I live in is not representative of all 50 states. It's not representative of every protester out there. I stood side by side with protesters tonight. We luckily didn't have the state brought down upon us. I fear for what's happening in New York right now, in Washington, D.C., in L.A., in Portland, in all different states and cities across the United States. I especially fear for D.C. right now, who are essentially under martial law. Thousands of uniformed military on their streets, APCs on the ground, UH-60 Blackhawks flying through the skies. This should never be allowed to happen in the United States of America. We're better than this. I have to wonder. We know that the cult is not going to step away from their dear leader. We know that the Republicans are not going to separate from the figurehead of their party. We know that, honestly, the Democrats and the Republicans, in the end of things, and to quote, someone on my timeline said this, they are two wings of the same bird. In the end, will be glad to use the precedent set by this for future insurrections. I have to wonder, when are the American people going to look towards third parties like the Libertarian Party and other third parties? But I'll specifically say the Libertarian Party because we have stood for liberty for 50 years, despite our flaws. I have to wonder, will everything going on right now make the people sit there and say, it's time for a change? It's time to recognize that giving the state more power is not okay. I don't want to see the military on our streets, just as much as I don't want to see the military in foreign lands. It's not what they're for. They were supposed to be defensive. They were supposed to be our defense against a foreign power invading our land and our nation. Instead, here we are seeing them being put into the American streets, being used by someone who is nothing less than a dictator and a tyrant and a fascist. Here we see them literally taking action against the American people. Dan Wasmer, I'm going to bring you up on screen here for a second. You're right. U.S. voters need both intervention and deprogramming. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, we are seeing the cult personality play out on both sides. As much as I loved how peaceful tonight's protest was, I saw people and I heard people chanting VOTE. And I was hopeful. Are they voting for change? But no. They were chanting to vote for the same thing with a different letter following the guy's name. See, I can promise you this. Even if Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton were the president of the United States, we'd be looking at a similar situation right now. Maybe the military wouldn't be on our streets. Might be the only difference. We'd still have the cops killing unarmed minorities in the streets because they're not going to take action. We'd still have this inequality. We'd still have this state that has institutionalized racism. That would never change. But there is this one side that seems to think that voting for this new name will change the whole system. To anybody that watches this that's not a libertarian, to anybody that watches this that is a libertarian, I plead with you. Share this to your friends. Share this to the people you love and you care about. Get your community engaged. Because right now, we need a libertarian in the White House more than ever. We need more than one libertarian in Congress more than ever. We need a libertarian in state offices around the country more than ever. Because that is the only way we are going to work to stop this. It is the only way that we are going to actually engage and enforce or support liberty. If a libertarian was in office, we wouldn't have to worry about the military being deployed on our streets. We wouldn't have to worry about police going against peaceful protesters. We wouldn't have to worry about the injustices because we're not afraid to talk about them. We also wouldn't have to worry about anarchists like myself and anti-fascists like myself being potentially deemed to be terrorists. I fear that. Yes, I wear it with a badge of honor. I wear it with this badge, the Torch of Liberty. But I still fear it because to be deemed a terrorist means that my rights are null and void. My constitutional rights that allow me a trial before a jury of my peers. My rights that allow me this fair process, even though it's not super fair anyway, are gone. And all because I'm willing to stand up and challenge the system. I fear that for my friends, both on the right side of the libertarian spectrum and the left side of the libertarian spectrum. I fear that for my friends that are a part of the DSA, part of the Greens. I fear that for everyone who challenges this system. This is my third night in a row talking about the things this president's doing. Because just when I thought I had seen all of the worst that he could do, he goes and makes it even worse. I followed Donald Trump's Twitter since I joined Twitter back before my election in November. And I thought I saw all the worst things. But tonight he decided to make it worse. If ever there was a time that we need to unite against the state, it is now. Because we are seeing all of the worst parts of the state play out in close succession to each other. The state kneeling on the neck of an unarmed man for 8 minutes and 47 seconds, all because of a forgery crime. The state tear gassing and shooting peaceful protesters with rubber bullets. The state shooting unarmed protesters with real guns. The state literally trying to spin a narrative that instead of alt-right white nationalist instigators, it is Antifa. The state trying to spin a narrative that these protesters are domestic terrorists. The state deploying the military on our streets. If there is any time that we should be standing against the state as a people, it is now. If there is any time that we should be waking up to the injustices of the state, it is now. Because right now is the most dire time in the history of the United States for we the people. Not since the foundation of this country, since it revolted against Britain, has our liberty been more at stake. Now we need to make a choice. And again, Dan, with something amazing to say, and to anybody watching this on my audio tree, or Anchor podcast, sorry, which is audio only, I apologize. I wish I could show you what he's saying. As a lawyer, your rights are a figment of your imagination in the US. We are not a free country, but strangely, it could be even worse than this. I think we're seeing the verge of how much worse it could be, Dan. And I thank you for adding that comment. And I hearken back to what I had to say here. Who is the terrorist? I'm not just asking that question with the obvious insinuation that Donald Trump is a terrorist. I'm asking that question with this as the insinuated answer. When are the American people going to realize that the state is a terrorist? We need to make radical change. We need to fix this. This year is our first chance to seriously reach people with this message. Because we're seeing the evil of the state play out in a way that we haven't seen for a long time. My generation seeing it for the first time. The generation after me is seeing it for the first time. And we're not content with this. I did see a glimmer of hope tonight. I saw protesters stating that both the Democrats and the Republicans are not the way towards freedom. Damn, if a truer message was never spoken. Thank you for that. I'll close this by saying what I've said the last few nights. To those peacefully protesting, to those trying to protect yourselves and fight for yourselves, to those trying to honor the memory of George Floyd, I stand with you. Tonight I stood with you. Thursday night I will stand with you. Sunday I will stand with you. Those are all in-person protests I'll be at. America isn't free. You're seeing it. You're beginning to understand it. The minority community has realized this for a while. Though we are freer than where they may have came from, they have recognized for a long time that we are not free. It's those of us here that were born here, that grew up here, that for some reason think this is free. It's not. It's time we make a change. It's time we become free. It's time we break free from what we are told is freedom. So get out there. Protest peacefully. Try to unite with people that you've never united with. Work with those that you never thought you'd work with. You might find some similarities, because in the end, we're all the same people. People fighting for our freedom against a tyrannical government. People fighting for our freedom against a government that doesn't want us to know true freedom. The moment we enact real freedom in this country is the moment unarmed men and women and children don't die in the streets at the hands of police any longer. It's the moment we no longer have military men and women going to foreign countries for bullshit reasons and dying. It's the moment we no longer have the need to deploy military on our streets. It's the moment we no longer have to worry about the things we say getting us labeled as domestic terrorists. It's the moment that we no longer have a government spying on us. We the people, free. We the people, united. That's what they fear. That's what they don't want. And that's what we need. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And as always, my name is Henry Conley with the Voice of Liberty podcast. Awaken the voice of liberty.